That's every Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio.
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Người Việt Tây Bắc, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
1, 2, get down!
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Maraire, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports. Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Do you have an idea for a community project in your neighborhood? You could be eligible for up to $50,000 in funding through the City of Seattle's Neighborhood Matching Fund. Grants are awarded to grassroots projects that build stronger communities, with an emphasis on projects led by impacting Black, Indigenous, and people of color BIPOC communities. To learn more about the Neighborhood Matching Fund or to see if your project meets the criteria, visit seattle.gov/neighborhoods/NMF.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.radio.world.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of Real Estate and More. It's been a great weekend, and we just celebrated Veterans Day. So we're going to be talking about vets and how you can purchase a home with your VA loan and what are some good spots in the Seattle area and in the Colorado area to actually buy a home loan. So thank you for joining us. Once again, I just want to say thank you to all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service. Thank you for giving up so much of your life actually to serve your country. And, you know, I am an Air Force brat. I lived in California, Nebraska. I lived in, I lived in Guam, Philippines, and landing, of course, in Seattle, Washington. So, you know, I'm speaking from some of the experience. I'm not exactly, I wasn't a vet, but my father was, and we certainly lived the life of a military family. So we're going to be talking about that. And hi, Violeta, how are you? I don't know if you can hear me, V, but yeah, so you see we have the same background here. We're both celebrating Veterans Day. But, you know, what's really nice is a lot of people think that vets, let me see here. Yeah, that's just back in the past and during World War I, during World War II, during times of war, a lot of people do join the military. But there are some people who actually are always in the military. Right now, we've got here in Colorado, we've got 5 branches of the military. We've got the Space Force. We've got the Army, the Marines, we even have the Navy. And of course, we have the Air Force. So this is a very good area, actually. I believe it's number 5 in the nation as far as military bases or military base states. So yeah, so V, can you hear us? I don't think she can.
I have a really bad connection. I can't see you.
Well, we can see you.
Hear you.
Well, we can see you. Can you hear her? Mm-hmm. Yes. We can see and hear you. Yes. So, yeah. Well, anyways, if you are in the military, if you are in the Air Force, if you're in the Navy, if you're in the Marines, if you're in the Army, or even the new Space Force, we actually do have loans for you. We're going to be talking about VA loans and what is a VA loan. And of course, VA loans for those people who actually have served in the military or you're at least 6 months active in the military, you've gone through basic training. And these are loans that you can get as part of a benefit as being a vet. So there are different reasons why you should get a VA loan as opposed to a regular conventional loan. If you do live in those areas, such as Bremerton in Washington State, if you live in Tacoma, Lakewood, Steilacoom, Bridgeport Way, you're off Bridgeport Way or in Olympia, you actually, if you live there as a military, those are good spots to buy. Also here in Colorado Springs is very, very heavy with military presence. And there are certainly areas within Colorado Springs, Monument, Castle Pines, Castle Rock, different places, even towards Pueblo, that you can actually buy property. So what's nice about a VA loan is 100% financing. Of course, you've got conventional loans, you've got FHA loans, you've got all types of different loans, but VA actually is a zero down, so you don't have to bring any money to the table, and there is no mortgage insurance. So a lot of times when you do get a conventional loan, and if you do not put 20% down, you're going to have mortgage insurance. And the mortgage insurance basically, it protects the lender so you default if you have less than 20% down. So on FHA and on conventional loans, there's required mortgage insurance. Now with VA, not only do you not have to put down any money, there is no mortgage insurance. So the government kind of backs your loan up. So it's much easier to get. So V, are you there? Can you hear? I guess you can't hear. Okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the VA loan and why you should do a VA loan. Well, first of all, the VA loan, like I said, is a benefit. If you are military, even if you are ex-military, if you've separated from the service, as long as you've served in the military, we're able to see if you qualify for a certificate of eligibility. Now, the certificate of eligibility basically tells a lender that, yes, the government will back your loan and you can go ahead and get a VA loan. Now, days in the past, I used to have my vets fill out an application. We had to mail something overnight to Winston, South Carolina to get your certificate of eligibility. Then it was mailed back to us. And that took anywhere from, a week to 2 or 3 weeks. Nowadays, it's online. So let's say you separate from the military back in 2004, or maybe 2021 or 2000, and you cannot find your certificate of eligibility. Well, more often than not, your lender is connected to the VA portal, and we're able to go in on your behalf, of course, with your authorization, and find your certificate of eligibility. Now, the certificate of eligibility is your primary focus that you want to get before you obtain financing. It actually tells the lender that, yes, the government will back your loan and you are eligible to receive VA benefits. Now, that certificate of eligibility will say who you are. It'll confirm your rank. It'll confirm your years of service, and if you qualify. Also, if you are on disability, that certificate of eligibility request will also show what your disability payment is. And it also shows us if there are any past loans that for whatever reason it was declined, refinanced, or for whatever reason you didn't pay that mortgage. It'll show on your certificate of eligibility. So that's the primary focus for lenders, is to get that certificate of eligibility, see if there's anything past owing, and see if you do qualify for a VA loan. Now, those VA loans, once you receive that certificate of eligibility, not only would I be able to give you a mortgage, but any bank out there will be able to give you a mortgage. Any bank that actually does VA loans will be able to use that certificate of eligibility. So just because I get you the certificate of eligibility doesn't mean you have to use me. It just means that you're eligible. And so for whatever reason you have to use another mortgage company, or you're just not quite sure who's got the best interest rate. First and foremost, have anybody pull your certificate of eligibility. If you have it yourself, great. If a lender does pull it for you, do not think that you're obligated to that lender. Just know that you are eligible for, of course, for benefits. Now, with a certificate of eligibility saying that, yes, you can get a VA loan, each lender and every lender still has to qualify you. So just because you have a VA loan does not mean, or certificate of eligibility, that does not mean that you just qualify for any loan that's out there. Lenders still have to look at your income, your assets. They have to look at your debt. They need to look at everything as if they were doing a standard loan. Now, of course, there's military. If you are active military, there are things that we use that we don't use for conventional or FHA. A lot of active military, they get their basic allowance for housing, which is your BAS, and your basic sustenance, which is your BAS. So a lot of times lenders, not all lenders know this, but you can add your basic housing allowance and your basic sustenance. And in most cases, we can actually gross that up by 25% and add it to your basic pay. And that is going to help you when you qualify. So let's say that somebody does not have VA benefits and they're looking for a loan at $500,000. their payment may be $3,500. And so we have to look at their income. Let's say they make $7,000 a month. That's great. But if you have military benefits, and if you do have VA, a lot of your basic military pay, it may be $3,500 plus you get another $2,500 for housing, another maybe $500 for sustenance. So having an active military pay stub or LES, a lot of times we can add back your basic pay, plus we can add also add your BAS, and gross that up by 25%. So if you are active military and you are stationed at a base, whether it's McChord Air Force Base, it's Joint Base Lewis McChord, if you're in Bangor, or if you're anywhere in San Diego, or you're in Colorado Springs, we're able to look to see, depending on whether you have, if you're an E1, you're Officer 1, you're Warrant Officer 4, we can look up what your basic sustenance is or your basic housing is, and we can apply that to the application of your loan. So places like in Lakewood, Washington, when I was working there, a lot of times the housing allowance more than compensated or more than paid for what a mortgage would have been. So some areas like in Washington State, if you do have basic housing allowance and you're living on base or you need to live somewhere around the base, your basic allowance for housing may cover a mortgage. Now, why should you do a mortgage instead of renting? Why not just use that $2,500 or that $3,000 for rent? Well, rent doesn't give you any equity. If you're living in somewhere like Tacoma or you're living in Bremerton or something where like Colorado Springs, and if you do have basic allowance for housing, why not use that benefit to buy a house instead of just, paying it towards rent? It's not doing anything. So if you do have basic housing and you are able to obtain a house in the area in which you are stationed, you could actually be there for 3 years. Let's say you're stationed there for 3 years. Now you're moving up to Alaska. You can rent this mortgage, you can rent this house down here and then later convert that into a conventional loan. But then you can actually buy another house with your VA benefits. So it's really nice. A lot of people think that certificate of eligibility is just for one loan, but it's actually for as many loans as you qualify for. A lot of times there is a certain figure, like what are your, it's like 38,000 credits, what have you. That's not a dollar amount. That's actually a credit. So if you buy a house, let's say in Washington State, and for whatever reason, after 3 years, you move to California, you can actually still have that house and buy another VA home. So there's a lot of details associated with that, but it's not often for me. I mean, it's not quite often I'll have partners or spouses where he's in the military, she's in the military. They've got 5 houses across the United States. Wherever they were stationed, they bought another house. My parents, the same thing too. They had houses everywhere they went. And of course, you can take the house that you bought right now. And if you want to qualify for more of a VA loan, you take that house, convert it into a conventional loan, have it for rent, let it pay itself, and get another house and get another house and get another house. So it really, really is beneficial to use your VA benefits. Now, there are some, actually, after you get qualified for a loan, if you qualify for, let's say you qualify for $630,000, some areas like in Washington State and Colorado Springs, there are limits to what how high you can go with a VA loan. A lot of times you can get past that, but some places like, let's say Colorado, sometimes realtors don't know a lot about VA loans. Sellers don't know about VA loans, and they think there's some type of mythical connotation about having a VA loan. It's going to be tougher. It's going to be harder. It's not going to go through. Now, that is actually an illegal practice. If you do have a VA loan, and you do make an offer on a house, and if they deny you because it's a VA loan, that's a red flag, and that is illegal. So when I first came into Colorado, there were some people who were very unfamiliar with VA loans. But after we educated the realtors on, hey, it's a simple process, it's a very good process, it's the best loan out there, of course, my soldiers were able to get that loan. So if you are living in an area, you get a lender, they put your certificate of eligibility, they give you a pre-approval amount, and you have a buyer's agent, you have your buyer's agent, make sure they have that certificate of eligibility, make sure they put on your offer that you are a vet and that this is a VA loan. And I believe they actually have to disclose that it is a VA loan. And you should be able to get any house that you're looking at. So please do go ahead and ask for a VA loan if you are VA eligible. A lot of times I did have clients who came in and they were ex-military or they were active military. For whatever reason, their family members, their church, their realtors, everybody around them, their friends said, hey, don't go VA, don't go VA. And that is such a tragedy because VA is actually the best loan out there. It really, really is. So if you do have benefits now, if you are active military and you have benefits now, make sure that you use your certificate of eligibility and you get a VA loan. Now, if you're separated from the military, let's say you retired like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you still want to buy a house, for whatever reason you inherited a house, it's FHA or it's conventional, you are still eligible. You may still be eligible for VA benefits. So I've got people who separated from the military 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You are still a vet. You still have VA benefits. So don't think because you've left the active military that you cannot qualify. So you actually will qualify. We have people who, they're what's called a surviving spouse. Let's say you were married to somebody who was in the military and they had VA benefits and they passed away and you are a surviving spouse. Those VA benefits can also transfer over to you as a surviving spouse. So I've got many clients, I've got women who, whose husbands passed away and husbands were military, and they're still able to continue to get VA loans and VA houses. So make sure you look into that. So now there are kids like me. Okay, I'm a military brat. Lived in the Philippines, lived in Guam. I want to buy a house. Well, I cannot buy a house VA loan because my father was a vet and my mother was the surviving spouse. So kids of military usually do not qualify for certificate of eligibilities and continuing that VA loan. Now, are there certain areas of town which you should buy you should buy a house or you should buy a VA loan? The military actually does have, like I said, limitations in different counties on what loan amounts are applicable, what loan amounts you can go up to. And this, of course, is guidance. So if you do move to somewhere like Colorado Springs, you're moving to Pueblo, West County, you can pull up on a graph how much the loan amounts, what the VA loan limits are in that particular county. So a lot of times when you are situated or you're at a branch or you're at a branch of the military like in Colorado Springs or something, of course you don't want to live somewhere 100 miles away or what have you. But there are a lot of areas within the city that's close to where your base is that you can actually buy. Now, there's another good reason too. I've got a lot of vets who bought in Lakewood, Washington, and then they since went on to South Carolina or San Diego or something. That house is still a rental for them. It is still a rental. So, you can't use the VA loan to buy a rental. You can only use your VA loan for a primary type of situation where it's your primary home. You cannot buy it for investment. But you can buy it as your primary home, and then when you leave, you can rent it out. So this is something you want to look into. Usually when vets do come into places like, let's say, McCord Air Force Base or Joint Lewis McCord Air Force Base, and they usually drive into town, they stay at either the lodge or they stay at one of the motels or something. The first thing you want to do if you're in that situation is find a realtor in the area and find a lender in that area immediately. A lot of times there's housing that's set aside, there's housing that realtors know offhand, hey, this is where you want to buy, this is where you can afford, let's go. So a lot of times if you do move into your area, do find a lender and a realtor immediately. I know when I was in Lakewood, Washington, and I was working off of Bridgeport Way, we had people actually with their trailers. They came from cross country at Georgia or somewhere. They just would drive right into our parking lot because it said John L. Scott Realty. And they would drive into our parking lot and say, hey, listen, I just got stationed here. I don't know where to go. And we set them up with a hotel. We pull their certificate of eligibility and we get them into a house within a month. So if that sounds like you, go ahead and try to buy a house. We have a lot of people who think, well, I'm going to be stationed there only 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. I'm not going to be there for 30 years. Who cares? If you do buy a house, you can use your BAH to get into that house and qualify for that home. If you can rent that property after you leave, who cares? You still have equity there. You still have choices. Now, of course, if you do get stationed somewhere and you buy a house and 3 years later you want to sell and take the equity out, that's fine too. But, you do have a benefit having a VA loan. So why not use it? Okay. So anyway, so Daniel, are you able to get Violeta back on? Mm-hmm. Yes, just lost. Okay. Well, I'll have her try again. But yeah, so what are some of the common things people do fight when they're VA? A lot of times lenders will not use their basic housing. They will not use their basic sustenance as income. So we want to make sure that if you were, for whatever reason, buying a house and your lender does not approve you or they don't know what's going on, they're just using your basic pay, then you need to say something. So, you've got the military charts. The military charts for pay that are on the internet. You can actually pull up armytimes.com, that sort of thing. You can certainly pull that up and show your lender and show your loan officers exactly what you're looking at. So let me just show you something here. This is something that's off of military pay. Let me look at this right here. Maybe Daniel can bring this up. But this is showing, let me see, wrong page. This is showing exactly if you were, let me see here. Okay. Let me send this over to Daniel so you can pull it up for you. Yeah, Daniel, if you can pull that up. Now, this is basically Defense and Finance Accounting Services. And it certainly shows the different ways in which military are paid. You've got your basic pay rates for commissioned officers, for warrant officers, for enlisted members. And just depending on where you are, or what your LES says you are, we will use that chart to pull up and actually look at your pay. So here you go. Here are those different things. Here you got commissioned officers with over 4 years of active military enlisted duty. You've got warrant officers. You've got enlisted members. And basically, this tells lenders. It's supposed to tell lenders how much you get paid. So let me go ahead. I'm going to send you another link here, Daniel. This is basically what I use. When I do get a VA applicant and they're active military, I actually I look at their LES. I don't go off of base pay. A lot of times, military don't know what their base pay is, but the military chart will show that. So down you got it there. Pay grade, if you're an E6, an E5, an E4, if you got over 2 years of service, so over 4 years of service, you can see how this is. What is this here? You can see how the pay is different. This is base pay right here. Okay. And then if you have more different years of service, so on and so forth, your pay grade actually will tell somebody exactly how much pay you get. So a lot of times loan officers don't know how to look at this. So make sure you pull up your military pay. If your loan officer does not get enough income or they don't know how to look at your income, you want to pull this up. This basically shows exactly how much you're going to get paid. And they don't have to look at your LES and be confused. An LES is what military calls a pay stub. A lot of loan officers, they'll look at the LES. They're like, what is this? So you have to make sure. What I look for on an LES is your rank, and I look for the number of dependents, years of service, and it tells us everything we want to know there. So let's look at basic clothing allowance, aviation allowance, health allowance. You've got different. Yeah, there you go there. So just depending on where you live, how long you've been in the military, that sort of thing, your pay is going to be different. So let me see if I can find basic housing allowance, military housing allowance. So, when you move from, let's say you move from Georgia and you move to Seattle, or you move to LaGuardia Air Force Base, or you're in San Diego, depending on the county, depending on the military base, your BAH and your BAS are going to differ. So just because your BAH was, $2,500 in Colorado Springs, doesn't mean it's going to be $2,500 in San Diego. It may be higher or it may be lower. So you want to get with an astute lender who actually pulls these military charts and they compare it. Now, I've seen more often than not, sometimes I see underwriters who have their SARS or they have their authorization to do VA loans, but for whatever reason, they don't know how to pull up military charts. So, when you pull up your basic housing allowance, your basic pay, your basic sustenance, I'm able to gross that up. And I know that. I've been doing this for 30 years. But some underwriters do not know it. Some lenders do not know it. There are some classes out there that, lenders take that certifies them in VA loans. That's great. That's dandy. That's a start. That's a good start in the right direction. But you want to really go to somebody who, with VA loans, they actually do VA loans. They're either ex-military or they've been around military or they've been around realtors with military. They've actually have life experience in it. There are so many little things with military that, with VA, that are not in the guidebooks. They're just not in the guidebooks. And so a lot of times it comes from experience. It comes from, loans that you try to get through and could not get through. It comes from underwriters telling a loan officer, hey, why don't you try this? There's different things you can do. A lot of times I get people who ask, can I have my friend get on my VA loan with me? You can't do that. Who's eligible for a VA loan? The vet is actually eligible and their spouse. Now you can get two vets on a loan. If you and a buddy actually, fought with each other and you move in the same area, you retire in the same area, and you want to go ahead and do a loan together, yeah. Husband and wife. I've had somebody in the Navy and the husband was in the Army. Yeah, we can use her benefits or his benefits. So he can buy a house here and then they move somewhere else. They move to Hawaii and we can use her loans there. We use her VA loan there. So not everybody qualifies for a VA loan. You can't say, hey, my mom wants to be on the loan. You can't do that because she's not military. A married spouse can get on a loan. Sometimes I've got away with fiance. So if you're engaged, you can use or if you're betrothed and you are engaged, then you can use that person to be on your VA loan. And I always tell vets, this is something that you fought for, you served for our country. This is something that you need to use. There's realtors out there who don't understand VA loans. There are sellers out there who don't understand VA loans. And there are a lot of banks who do not understand VA loans. If you're told no with a VA loan, so what? Keep going. Keep going until somebody tells you yes. If they say, hey, you're not eligible because you don't have, VA says you can't do it and certificate of eligibility is not coming through approved, great, then go fight with the VA. You'll get that fixed. If your lender doesn't know how to fight for you, you need to get another lender. When it comes to, you don't qualify, your income is not enough. That might be the case. It may not be the case. So often I've had people who were VA loan rejects and they got on my desk and I'm like, did they gross this up? Did they use that? Did they know you work here? I've done that. So if somebody tells you no with VA, keep going, keep going, keep going. I've had people who came to my desk and once I said they were approved, they just start crying. They just fell out and started crying on my desk and thanked me so much and named their child after me and everything else. But it's only because I fought. A lot of times with VA loans, let's say that you were deployed and you were fighting. You were fighting somewhere in a war-torn area, what have you. And you were late on your military star. You were late on your Capital One because you were rolling around fighting, fighting people. A lot of times lenders don't have to look at your last 12 months of late pays. Okay, I'll say that once again, if you are deployed and you've been late, you're missing some of your payments on your credit cards, we actually will ignore that for 12 months. So VA loans are very, very good. If you went down the street to the bank and they pulled your military card is 60 days late, they're like, you're out of here, you're not getting a loan. But with VA loans, we actually can say, hey, we don't look at the last 12 months. Or we actually can write your creditors and say, hey, listen, he was deployed. And a lot of times, more often than not, when I was in Lakewood, when we wrote letters to the creditors, they came back and said, thank you for your service. Your debts are forgiven. So you want to make sure that if you do have VA, if you have eligibility and you want to get a house, fight, you will get a house. Maybe now, maybe in 2 months, maybe in 6 months, but you'll eventually get a house if you keep doing the things that the lender tells you to and you keep fighting and doing what it takes to get that loan. Now, if you have any questions, you can give me a call, 253-332-5986, and we can talk about your eligibility. We can talk about where you want to live, so on and so forth. We can talk about having a realtor who understands military families to get you at the right place at the right time to buy the right house. So let me see. So Daniel, are we close to time up? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, anyways, I want to say once again, I was a military brat and I lived in all different types of places. Born in Palo Alto, lived in the Philippines, went to Omaha, Nebraska, and lived there. Most satisfying, loving life, loving people. I know my parents' best friends of all time were from the military. I had a very special upbringing because I was part of a military family and made me who I am. And so for all those vets out there, thank you for your service. And if you have any needs, if you need to find out anything about VA loans, please do give me a call, okay? Remember, there is a 1-800 number for VAs. I can't really give it out on the phone, what have you, but if there's a certificate of eligibility issue, if there's an income issue, if your disability is at 60% or more, you're trying to figure out what that is. If you want to find out if your ex-spouse, you want to find out if your husband or somebody else can be on the loan, there's always an answer. If for whatever reason you cannot do a VA loan, well, I'll flip you over to FHA. We'll do something else. But just make sure that, you know your rights and, you can go out there and start buying homes. And it's not uncommon for me to see vets who have homes in Arizona, they're in Texas, they're in Hawaii. Just because you are deployed or just because you are stationed in Washington State doesn't mean you're stuck to Washington State. If you bought a house, if you have your military benefits because you were stationed in Washington, you want to buy a house in Florida, and if you've lived there, you want to later on go to Texas, the VA loan follows you. Okay, the VA loan follows you. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope next week you can join us once again. My name is Tina Lombard, and I am with Novus Home Mortgage, and we'll see you next week.